Conference Committee report on House Bill number 1999, an act relating to state government appropriating money from outdoor heritage. The Conference Committee report is addressed to the Honorable Melissa Hortman, Speaker of the House, the Honorable Bobby Joe Champion, President of the Senate. We, the undersigned conferees for House Bill number 1999, report that we have agreed upon the items in dispute and recommended as follows. The report is signed by 4 of the 5 members on the part of the House and 3 of the 5 members on the part of the Senate. Lilly moves that the report of the Conference Committee on House Bill number 1999 be adopted and that the bill be repassed as amended by the Conference Committee.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Lilly, to the report.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That is my motion. Appreciate a green vote.
Representative Lilly moves that we adopt the Conference Committee report. Representative Backer to the adoption of the Conference Committee report.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And I would ask not to adopt this report. It is so important that we carry our process out correctly. On Friday, which this is what I signed up for. I got a text at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we're having a Legacy Conference Committee. I get it, that's part of the process. So I drove in from almost South Dakota, across the state, and we sat down, which for the public, right now when you do a conference committee, it's really for the tourists because it's done by the 2 chairs. We didn't have the discussion. You know, I know our chairs don't smoke, so I don't know if they were in the back room with some bubbles or whatever they were. But I mean that seriously. I'm having a little fun. But we as confirmands, the people I represent, and actually on Legacy being the lead, I represent all of the state of Minnesota. There are opinions that we have that count. So we get there, and we had a spirited debate, discussion. And there was some good things said, really there was. But the challenge is we passed this bill out of conference committee members with no bill language. We had an outline. I was not supposed to use props on the floor, sorry. But that's all we had. And we know that words matter. Words matter. This is, I hate to use the word, sloppy work. We out in the professional world couldn't do that. None of you would want to take your car to a mechanic, and this is how I referred to it on a radio interview. Let's get tires on, let's get tires on, let's get them on real quick. I'm so much in a hurry, let's put one lug nut on. How many of you would want to drive from Minneapolis to South Dakota with one lug nut on each wheel? None of us would want to. I sure want my family to do that. So just that process was so disturbing. We didn't have that bill language, and no, that is not something that's common at all, and if it is, shame on us. This is not the process. We want our younger generation to follow laws and rules. We just got done with higher education. We want to teach them what's right. We want to teach them, and when we as authorities say, we'll just pass it through. And by the way, we got the bill language last night about 10, 11. Yeah, it's a pattern. Thank you. It's a crappy pattern. It really is. I'm sorry, members. We should raise ourselves higher. It's just like a tide raises the whole ship. We need to raise the bar. People look to us to do the right thing, not the easy things, like getting up at 5 a.m., driving across from almost South Dakota over to this end of the state. That's not necessarily easy, but that's the right thing to do. And I do appreciate working with the chair, but on this one, you got it wrong. The whole committee got it wrong. Only 2 of us said, nope, we're not going to do it, because guess what? We could have met. I heard higher education met right before this. We could have met on Monday, yesterday, or right before here, do a discussion and so forth and do it right, because words matter. This pattern is lazy, folks, and I'm really concerned, Madam Speaker, that this is going to continue. Minnesotans deserve us to do our work, and we didn't do our work here. So I would ask all members to vote no on the adoption of this for those obvious reasons. Thank you, members.
Members, just want to remind folks we're on the adoption of the conference committee report, not on passage of the bill. The member from Stearns, Representative Demuth.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, I'm grateful that we were able to hear the concerns brought forth by the minority through Representative Backer. The fact that there was not bill language, I do not feel that it is appropriate that we would be adopting this conference committee. And with that, Madam Speaker, I request a roll call.
Representative Demuth requests a roll call. Sorry, it's allergies. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Discussion on the adoption of the report. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll on adoption. The clerk will close the roll. There being 69 ayes and 62 noes, the motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended by conference.
Third reading, House Law Number 1999, as amended by conference.
Third reading as amended by conference. I recognize the author of the bill, the member from Ramsey, Representative Lilly, to explain the report.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This really is a good bill, and we've had a lot of opportunities to look at it, and I think we all can be really proud of the work that's in this bill, and it's really for a much better Minnesota all over. Just to refresh your memory, in 2008, the voters approved a constitutional amendment to tax themselves, and that's adds up to about $820 million in this biennium, and we're able to do some amazing work all over Minnesota. And so in the Lessard-Sams area, and I just really want to start out by thanking the citizens that are on that committee and do that work, and the legislators. I believe Representative Heitzman was on there, so we'll see how he votes later. And staff. There's 44 projects that were picked. Just keep this in mind, 121,000 acres are protected and restored in Minnesota. Thousands of trees are planted, lakes, streams, and all these investments in public land. Keep in mind, this is for all of us. This isn't, someone that might be lucky enough to live on a lake or something. This is for all of us. We can get on this land, every one of us, all Minnesotans. There's amazing investments in the clean water area this bill that passed. 59 projects cleaning up watersheds all over the state of Minnesota. There's low interest loans if you're a farmer, working with farmers to get them to maybe change some of their practices and to work on that. There's also a goal in here. We set a goal to make sure that to try to achieve a goal by 2050 that our water is swimmable, fishable, and drinkable. I mean, that's when you think of Minnesota, how important our waters are, and this bill does that. It moves us towards these goals, which is better for all of us. In the parks and trails space, there's parks and trails all over, every one of your districts. I've been on a lot of them, and I hear a lot of them. I watch your tweets, I watch your stuff. You'll say, you'll be at ribbon cuttings and different things. There's trails all over, every one of your districts, all over the state of Minnesota. I don't know if you were outside on Saturday or this weekend rather, and we finally had one of those nice spring days. Tell me those trails aren't popular. And this bill goes after that and invests in these parks and trails. So, and this is an amazing bill in that space. The ICANN program is funded through the DNR, getting people that have never had the opportunity to get out and maybe get in a canoe. Maybe didn't have a family member that could teach them how to fish or canoe or to get on the water. How amazing is that? In the arts and cultural space, there's amazing things. And this comes out of conference committee, pretty close to where it was. But there's amazing things, the traditional things that we funded, like zoos and libraries, every one of your districts. We try to keep Erdahl's books out of them, but maybe we should do what Florida did, maybe, and ban a book or an author. No. It's amazing with the libraries. Zoos all over Minnesota. Duluth Aquarium, right here in St. Paul. Just amazing, the Science Museum and other things. There's ampers in this bill that's put together with both, all over the state, radio channels, NPR, public TV, Historical Society. Tell me they don't have a project in one of your districts. And that's funded through this bill. Amazing work. And thousands of art grants are going out all over. And I imagine you might know somebody that's received an art grant in your district. That's done through this work. That's what the voters proved in Minnesota, and you can really be proud of it. And we're able to do this all together. But I guess that's kind of, I'm telling you more, I'm backing up and telling about the bill. And I think what happened in conference committee, there's some things that are a little different, like every bill. And maybe, I understand there might be some questions, but I think this is a good bill for Minnesota. This serves all Minnesotans, everyone. Our new Minnesotans, our old Minnesotans, and gives them access. And so I think we can really be proud of this work. And I'd be shocked if there's in a full green board like Bobby Gunther used to get. I'll stand for questions, Madam Speaker.
The member from Crow Wing, Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Speaker. And I do have some questions, but number one, I just want to start out by saying nobody doubts the heart of Chair Lilly. This is a committee that I think is near and dear to many of us, myself, I'm including in that. And Chair Lilly, I really enjoyed your committee, and thank you for that. The legacy bill has so many really terrific things that we could talk about for quite some time, and I understand we kind of weave through in and out the projects and all of the different things that it does through the debate and the discussion. There are some things, though, that, of course, are missing, and I wanted to quickly highlight those. As the legacy bill left the floor just a couple of weeks ago, we had adopted a few amendments, two amendments that I offered and that were taken up, and really thankful for that. Number one was an amendment that prohibited dollars from the arts and cultural heritage side of the spending in the legacy bill from going towards projects that are promoting acts of domestic terrorism. And I'm thankful that that amendment was taken up, although I see coming back, and Chair Lilly, if I missed it in the bill, it only dropped, like Representative Backer mentioned, I think late last night, 10 o'clock. And if I'm wrong on that, you correct the record. But I don't believe that that amendment that was passed out in our language here in the House was included. And I really would have liked to have seen that come through, and I'm not entirely sure why. The other one was an amendment that prohibited arts and cultural heritage funds, again, from being awarded to organizations who have had civil or criminal sexual harassment or sexual assault judgments against them. And that was stripped also in conference committee. And in case someone's been living under a rock, Republicans are in the minority in both the House and Senate. And Democrats have a majority position in both those chambers, and of course also had that on the conference committee, and the decision to remove that is concerning to me, both those amendments. And since I wasn't on the conference committee, if it would be okay, Madam Speaker, I'd ask Representative Backer to yield to a question.
He will yield. Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Speaker. Representative Backer, you were on the conference committee. It sounds like there might have been a bit of a different process than what we've seen in years past, bienniums past. Maybe you could elaborate, if you were a part of that conversation, if there was any conversation on these provisions that were stripped out and that are no longer in the bill, if you could speak to that at all, I would really appreciate that.
Representative Backer.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, I was not part of the process at all because when we got there, we didn't have the bill language there specifically. I did ask, I did have a question, and I asked the chair her on the Senate, why that was removed, because this is so important, and I don't know if I got a really clear answer. I think that question would be better to Chair Lilly. That's what I would recommend.
Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Speaker. Representative Lilly, maybe you heard my question, and if you would yield, Representative Lilly.
He will yield. Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Chair. Same question, Representative Lilly. I really am tracking these things closely, and I'll just quickly elaborate a little bit, especially on this issue of sexual harassment. I think in a debate this last week, Representative Herr mentioned that there had been service in your history, Representative Herr, on a Human Rights Commission. And I too have that experience. I was serving on a Human Rights Commission in Crow Wing County. In fact, was the chair of the Crow Wing County Human Rights Commission. This issue of sexual harassment in the workplace and other places is really near and dear to my heart. And there was a specific instance and it was a discussion in the Legacy Committee. It was something I think needed to be discussed. And that's something that hits home for me. Something that, as the father of 3 daughters, I want to make sure that I do everything I can to make sure that they are safe, wherever they are, especially in the workplace, as I mentioned. And if we're promoting, we're actually sending taxpayer dollars, legacy dollars, to organizations that have individuals running them with a history of being a bad actor in this subject area. This amendment dealt with that, and that was pulled out in conference committee, Chair Lilly. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd sure appreciate it if you could help me understand why that wasn't included, how that got stripped out.
Representative Lilly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and Representative Heitzman. So there's basically 2 questions there. One on the terrorism language, and certainly terrorism and the promotion of terrorism, which I'm certain you already know is illegal. And so we looked at it, we tried to figure out how to do it, and it was not workable at this point. But just so members know, just in all clearness, that it's against the law already, so it's illegal.
Representative Heinzman.
I'm sorry, Madam
Representative
Speaker.
Lilly.
I didn't answer the second question.
Oh, Representative Lilly.
Madam Speaker and Representative Heitzman, I'm sorry, and then the second question on sexual harassment. I mean, to be totally clear, that's awful. I mean, it's just simply, it's awful, and the Senate did not take the language, and we talked about it, and it was not taken. So the House position was heard.
Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you, Chair Lilly. I'm unfortunately continuing to be extremely disappointed that the Senate, it sounds like, in conference committee was opposed to this language, and specifically Democrats in the Senate, because Republicans offered the amendment on the Senate side as well, and it was rejected. Which is, to me, again, shocking that Democrats would reject language that would have prohibited these folks that are coming to the legacy or coming to the process asking for legacy dollars, taxpayer dollars, that have a history of sexual harassment. And it's such a bizarre situation. So I wish there was more to that, Representative Lilly. I'm extremely frustrated that this isn't something that we could address. And to the suggestion that it's something that's already illegal. Well, I honestly really disagree. There have been examples, Chair Lilly, of projects being funded in the arts and cultural heritage category that have depicted acts of domestic terrorism. There was even a video game, very specifically, that was developed with Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund money that allowed those that played this game to blow up pipelines. I just don't think that's something that most Minnesotans would support. In fact, I think very few would support that. And so I don't think that suggesting that that's already illegal is the case. I think since we already have a track record of those kinds of things being funded, this amendment was critical that it go on to this bill. And I'm disappointed that Democrats stripped that out in conference committee. And then additionally, this issue of sexual harassment not being addressed, this is abhorrent, folks. What are we doing, members, if we can't say to a group that comes to the state of Minnesota through this process and say, we're not going to be taking and supporting those groups that have a history, a track record of this kind of behavior? Democrats took that out of the bill, stripped it out in conference committee. Unbelievable. Well, it doesn't sound like this is something that I can work on today, but I guarantee you, Chair Lilly, and to those of you that are still listening, and those of you at home, I will be working on this. This isn't going away. This isn't right, and this has to be fixed. And if Democrats won't do it, I'll certainly be there going forward, working on making sure that it does.
Further discussion. I recognize the member from Ramsey, Representative Hussein.
Thank you, Chair. And this bill is a great bill. And I want to thank Chair Liddy for his dedication and hard working. Not only that, we are investing all Minnesota, whether it's the Clearwater, Park and Rec. We're spending $818 million so our water could be drinkable, fishable, swimmable, so we can have our generation to dedicate for 2040. We spent a lot of time, and yes, we did have a great time in the legacy. And we agree a lot of things together and to work for the people of Minnesota. I am honored to be part of that legacy, and I have learned a lot. We did not leave no one behind. We try to take care of all Minnesota, and we know that Minnesota has a rich history for cultural when it comes to it. We address to take care for every community so that they can celebrate, and everyone is history deserve to be told and to celebrate for their cultural. And that's what we did, and that's what legacy is. And this is a great bill. We are educated for arts. We invest in libraries. We are trying to take care of our youth, our young generations, our water, our trees. And thank you for your dedication and for your hard work and putting this great bill together. I will urge all my colleagues and friends for both sides, please. Let's not look for the little things, but look for the bigger picture for this bill, and let's vote for all green.
Further discussion of the conference committee report on House File 1999. I recognize the member from St. Louis, Representative Scraba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Chair Lilly, thank you. First committee, for me, the other members of the committee, for me it was fun. I learned a lot about Minnesota. I learned a lot about the Legacy Fund. I learned a lot about what 3/8 of a cent really matter, what it makes a difference in our state. I represent an area that benefits a lot from this bill. It's important to the constituents that I represent that we have trails so everyone can come up and use them, so we can use them. It's important that we have clean water. It's something that we pride ourselves on, and we have mining, we have all kinds of extraction, and we still have the cleanest water in Minnesota. The other day, my dog fell in the Mississippi River. Took 2 days to clean her to get that smell off. I don't know how y'all live in this, but I couldn't do it. So this is something that this legacy bill made a difference to me, looking at where does this money go and how does it get there? And it's not perfect. You know, y'all are standing up saying it's the best in the world. It's like, that's great, but it's not perfect. But you know what? At some point, I learned in my political life, sometimes you got to just look at what's the positive and try to find what's good. The Board of Water and Soil Resources, they benefit. My district has a lot of good things they use that for. Outdoor Heritage Fund. These are things that people in northern Minnesota are used to, and the folks that come up to use it and see it, they like it. Some of the, one of the things I was really impressed with was putting funds away for promoting the Ojibwe language. At age 16, I started going up to Lac La Croix, Ontario, and I interacted with the natives all the time, and they would always speak at the table in their tongue, and I had no idea what they were saying, but when they started laughing, I always knew they were talking about me, you know? So you pick up on them inflections. But I found it such a fascinating language, and then those old guides started passing away, and the younger ones were it was missing. But they're trying to bring it back, and I see now in our state, we're gonna try to bring it back. I encourage people to learn the language. It's a pretty cool language. I wish I was younger and I could learn it better. But this bill as a whole does benefit the people in my district. It benefits my district, so I will be supporting it. Thank you again, Chair Lilly, and thank you, committee members.
Further discussion. I recognize the member from Meeker, Representative Erdahl.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. And just want to, in a way, echo some of the things that Representative Scarborough just said. This isn't a perfect bill. I don't know that I've ever seen a perfect bill here. Oh, maybe one that I did once. But not a perfect bill. There are things in here, as Representative Heinzman was pointing out, that I wish had been included in the bill. And maybe in a future time they will be. But I will support this bill for what's in it, not for what's out of it. And there are, as Representative Lilly pointed out, a lot of good things in this bill, things that the people of Minnesota expect and intend to see. It was mentioned that this bill passed and created in 2008, that the people voted to increase their own taxes. But another important point, they did it during a recession. So during a recession, the people of Minnesota voted to increase their own taxes to pay for things that they value, like the outdoors, like water, like history and culture, and parks and trails, because it was important to them. And this bill still is important. The most recent poll I saw showed that 75% of the people of Minnesota support the legacy amendment and the provisions such as are in this bill. And so I will happily vote green on this today and urge others to do so as well. Thank you.
Further discussion of the Conference Committee report on House File 1990. I recognize the member from Traverse, Representative Backer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. And, first of all, I also enjoyed working on the committee. Really got to know Representative Shaw and Representative Hussein and her and folks that I really never worked with before and so forth. And then, of course, sharing the corner of the third floor with the chair. Your CA is always good to go to find the rest of the story, by the way, okay? But no, it was really enjoyable to work with. And there is a lot of good things in this bill. I do believe back many years ago when this was passed, Minnesotans really wanted to focus on parks and trails, libraries, historical societies, and so forth. I think that's the nut and bolts of the bill, of legacy. But the concern that I have is, I agree with Representative Erdahl, there's never going to be a perfect bill. The concern I have is the process that we saw. We don't have to get it right all the time, but on this one, we have to get it right. I do not want to be driving down I-94 with one lug nut on each rim, because I won't make it to Representative O'Neill's district, because that's where I always stop to fill up in gas in her district. But I think it's the bad process. I think we set bad precedents, and we need to raise the tide of that whole ship. Also, what sets bad precedents is the sexual harassment being pulled out, that statement. I don't have 3 daughters, I have 1 daughter. And I want her to be respected. I know every father and mother, but especially fathers, we have a special relationship with our daughters. It's a different relationship than mom and daughter. We are that provider, that protector. We're there for them. And so pulling that out, I really believe that sets a very bad precedence for the state, because words matter, our actions matter, and so forth. So, and also very concerning, the Children's Museum. I do want to mention that. The Senate actually, in my opinion, had better language than the House, especially for the museums in greater Minnesota, because the staff is less, and to have that direct appropriation. We know we need strong outlets for our children. I have had the opportunity to visit the one in Fergus Falls, and before representing Fergus Falls, I thought, wow, I never knew this resource was here. And that resource is so vital for our younger generation, so I'm very concerned about that language that was agreed upon between the 2 chairs. You know, I won't say in the dark of the nights in a smoky room, maybe in a room full of bubbles, because children love bubbles, okay? They do, I know that. Though on the serious note, that's a quite concerning about what happened to the Children's Museum. They are a wonderful asset. We know the St. Paul one is used heavily here in the metro area. So with those reasons, especially because of the process, I will be voting no on this bill. Even though I know Chair Lilly, just take a deep breath, Chair Lilly, okay? I do respect you, and we have a very good relationship. So with that, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Further discussion to the Conference Committee report on House File 1999. I recognize the member from Washington, Representative Cha.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to speak to the Arts, Culture, and Heritage and Language Preservation of the Legacy Committee. As a new American, the preservation of culture, heritage, languages is very important to me and the new immigrants, and those are a part of this country. And so the piece that we have set aside to preserve the cultural language of indigenous people and immigrants of this nation is very important to me and my community and to me as a legislator. So I want to thank Chair Lilly and the committee members. I want to thank my friends across the aisle, Backer, Heinzman, Scraba, Farr, for being on this committee, and the friendships we've made, and the trips and the fishing trips you've promised to take me on, all right? And so I want to thank you for that. But I want to speak to the libraries, the zoo, the museums, and the parks. As a new refugee and immigrant to America, we didn't have much resources in the 80s. And so for someone like me who didn't have much resources, the only place where I could get books, libraries, and have access to microfiche and possibly a word processor was at the libraries. And so as these new immigrant refugee students, that was the only place where we could get those kind of resources. So that's why libraries are important to these communities and communities like mine and to people like me. Because of these investments, it's allowed me to have a different trajectory, to allow me to have a better outcome. which allowed me to be here with all of you today. The zoo, the museums, the parks, we use those recreational facilities to the best of its utilities because we didn't have the internet back then. We didn't have much. We had the parks. Our entertainment for our community and for my family was going to the zoo every year, to the conservatory, going to the museum with my children, the downtown museum. Those things are important to beginning families like myself. The Historical Society, clean water. Clean water is important to me. I live in Woodbury, where PFAS has tanked over 38% of our wells in East Metro. Of all 18 wells, 7 of them are under operation. Clean water is important to all living things, not only to me and my children, but to the animals, the plants, the environment. Thank you, Chair Lilly, for the great job you've done on this chair. Yes, it's not perfect, but we have to start somewhere, and we're starting somewhere today. Thank you.
Further discussion to the Conference Committee report on House File 1999. I recognize the author of the bill, the member from Ramsey, Representative Lilly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members, and thank you for this discussion. And I actually appreciate it because, for example, on the questioning the grants, yeah, there was a problem years ago, and just so everybody knows, we give away thousands of grants, so it's highly likely that one could fall short. A couple years ago, there was one in the Lessard Sam space up in northern Minnesota. Unfortunately, someone was giving money, I think, to their brother-in-law or something, and quite honestly, they didn't get money for a long time. Maybe, I think they took a while to reestablish themselves. So everybody knows this money is important and sacred, and I take it very serious. And we're looking at it. We've added all everybody. We added a few things this year through conference committee, to be quite honest. And but we looked at them, and I'm really proud to say they're really good additions, and I think we're going to be able to do some really great work. So I'm glad that comes up, because that's a question I ask every day, because quite honestly, we don't really want to be on the news. This is kind of sacred money, I think, so we want to do good work. We don't want to have someone fall short. There's amazing things in this bill, and I don't want to go through it again, but I just want to show a book that we did last year, and this goes out to all the libraries and kids. The Historical Society put it together. This is a book that was done by Legacy. You can get this and hand it out to people in your district. It's in your, should be in all your libraries. And this was done by Legacy. And, but there's endless things. But none of this gets done without us. I'm going to thank staff again. So I'm sorry to keep going, but I feel sorry for you. I'm going to say this again. You guys don't have the best staff. We do. Mary Davis, I don't know if she's delivering a baby today, but she was working right up to the very end. Janelle Taylor, Brad Hagemeyer, Helen Roberts, and certainly Amy over there. She did a little bit of too good a research, I think, for Josh and Backer, but she did a good job. And and thanks to Mike Molzon and Madison Priestley, my LA. But anyways, we're lucky to be in this space. My committee members were amazing. And, Vice Chair Hussein did a great job and kept us moving and challenged us. Representative Backer, you, honestly, I appreciate serving with you. You are, a good member. And I was impressed. We did move fast in this. He's not wrong. But I think in the end, it's very good work. I think it's something that we can be proud of. Hats off to him. He's way over in South Dakota, and I talked to him on the phone, and he comes flying in for a hearing. And he did ask to be virtual, and we couldn't pull it off. But he drove in, and that's a testament to him and the hard work. Representative Finke did a great job on the committee. Thank you for serving and great questions all session. Representative Vang, and thank you, Chair Vang. And Chair Lee was on the committee. Chair Herr, also, great job. And Representative Cha, just an amazing voice to have on our team. Representative Farr, where are you? I can't remember where you sit. There you are, sorry, buddy. And Representative Heitzman also was on there. And he was definitely paying attention, as you saw today. And Representative Scraba, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being on. I think there really is good work. I'm sorry to kind of drop the plow a little bit here, but please look at the bill. And if you can, I said this before, and if you can't win an election on this stuff, there's something in here for everybody, and it's really good work for the state of Minnesota. And we're so lucky to have these funds. I'm so honored to have the opportunity to be chair, but it's really all of our bill. It's not mine. It's work that we're doing. And this bill really leans into the new Minnesota. It really goes after getting money to people that haven't had a voice at the table. And I think it's a great bill that we can all be proud of. And I think you could probably vote green today. So thank you for your time.
The clerk will take the roll on repassage of Conference Committee report from House File 1999. The clerk will close the roll. There being 101 ayes and 31 nays, the bill is repassed as amended by conference and its title agreed to.